friends, today we're going to dive into the 2021 examiner's report for the English exam last year. And I'm going to pinpoint the weaknesses examiners see in students, and I'm going to teach you how you can overcome these weaknesses so you don't do them yourself in the exam this year. Also, if you don't know me, I'm Lisa. I'm the founder of Lisa Study Guides, and I achieved a study score of 46 in English. I've had over 10 years of tutoring experience, so I'm here to share with you everything that I've learned along the way so that you can score as high as you can possibly in your English exam. Let's go. All right, so I've opened up the 2021 VCE English External Assessment Report, and basically I'm not going to cover the areas where they're happy with because I think you can go ahead and read that yourself, but specifically I'm just going to highlight the areas that can be improved and how you can improve them yourself. So the first part is the general comment section, and this is really just an overview of how students fared in last year's exam. What I would love to highlight for you is this part here. Some general observations for continued improvement are as follows. It says here that students are generally pretty confident when it comes to characters, plot points, key examples, and quotations, but what they have to do is judiciously choose textual material that is relevant to the set question and be brave enough to put the rest aside. So what this indicates to me is that because you are practicing your essay writing ahead of the exam, the trap that a lot of people fall into is that they get really comfortable with specific examples they want to use. And so when it comes to the exam, what these students will do is they will sometimes just force and make those examples work, even if the prompt doesn't really relate to it, even if it's not necessarily the best example for that prompt. And so that's what this part is really talking about, how it's really important that you use textual material that is relevant to the question at hand. It's really obvious to an examiner when you're using an example that you've memorized or an example that you've used over and over again, but it doesn't quite sync up with the essay prompt. So that's why here it also says you need to be brave enough to put the rest aside. So what this means is really just having a look at the prompt at hand and checking yourself and asking yourself, is this example that I love using the best example that I could be using here? Or do I have other examples in my arsenal that I could be using? Maybe you're not as comfortable with them, maybe you're not as practiced with them, but if it means that you can actually really answer the prompt, then you're gonna get better marks as a result. So to be judicious is to be wise, to be sensible about what example you want to be using. And I'm saying all of this because I've been there too. Like, I have had examples that I love to use and that I'm like, yeah, this example is the best. If they read this, they're gonna be like, this girl's so smart, she knows her shiz. But sometimes those examples are just not the right examples for that specific prompt. So what this means is from here until the exam, make sure you explore lots of different essay topics, make sure you feel comfortable regardless of what theme, what character you're talking about, and really build up that example bank so you go into the exam feeling confident regardless of what comes out on the page. The next part covers section C. So this is talking about how students need to identify contention, supporting arguments, and relevant language use, but they do not always demonstrate understanding of how the argument develops and functions, how the language is used to persuade, and why it is intended to impact on the audience in a particular way. So what people are typically falling into the trap of is just summarizing, paraphrasing what's actually there, but what you want to be doing is actually analyzing what's there, building up your own interpretation. And so I've taught the T rule on my channel before. I'll put up a link there for you. Using the T rule is what really clicked it for me when I was in year 12. I was getting like 17s, 18s out of 20s, so basically A's, but I just couldn't seem to get A pluses for some reason. And once I figured out the T rule and I understood how to apply it, that's when I started to get consistent full marks on my analyzing argument. One of the tips that I can give to you is if you write what you think is an analysis, have a read of it again and see if you've introduced anything new. Is what's written down on paper paper something that you've already gathered, something that another reader can already gather from the article? If it is, then it just means you're repeating the article, you're just like switching up the words. If you're introducing something new through your writing, which is your interpretation, that's when you know you're on the right track. I thought this one was really funny, by the way. Basic handwriting legibility is emerging as a significant issue. Okay, so here's some tips for you on how you can improve your handwriting. So first is, by the time you start your SWOT vac, make sure you are handwriting all of your essays. Handwriting is really good because it really forces you to start ordering your ideas in a flow, because when you're on your laptop, you can delete, you can move paragraphs around. So that's not really conducive to what you'll be doing in the exam. In the exam, you need to be able to write from start to finish and hopefully not be moving too many things around. So handwriting all of your essays from here on is super handy. This is gonna sound really dumb, but like find a pen that is easy for you to grip, it's easy for you to write, it glides on the paper. When you feel good about what's on your hand, you're gonna feel good about the writing. It's basically just trying to get rid of any resistance so that you're enjoying the handwriting process and you really get into it. The third tip is, when I finish all of my essays and I had proofreading time for a couple of minutes, what I do is actually review through my entire essay and just pick up any areas, any words that seemed like they were a bit messy. I'd cross them out and I'd rewrite them again slowly and clearly, just so the examiner knew exactly what I was talking about. The fourth and final tip I've got for handwriting is, you're probably not writing particularly clear because you're stressing and you're trying to get things done. And that's why working on your time management when it comes to essay writing is really important. I've also done another video there, so go ahead and watch that if that is an issue for you. I love looking at the examiner's report because underneath each section, you can actually see how people have scored in terms of percentage. You can see here that most people actually score 6 out of 10. And then as you go higher, fewer people achieve those higher marks. One thing that I will also highlight here is how-based questions. So whenever you have a prompt that starts with the how, make sure you do include literary devices as part of your discussion. When it says, how does 9 Days explore the connections that keep people together, it's really asking you, how does the author of 9 Days demonstrate to you through her language the connections that keep people together? So when you're talking about literary features, you're talking about things like characterization, symbolism, metaphors. There's a whole list that I've got as a resource which you can use as well, so go ahead and check that out. I'm just basically pointing you guys to lots of resources to get you prepared for exams. So I hope this helps. So let me know if you want me to keep, pointing you to different resources. Most people understand that throughout an essay there needs to be a flow, that argument in your first paragraph, in your second paragraph, and in your third paragraph need to build upon one another, as opposed to other people who are simply just having body paragraphs and then just having examples and each time just supporting the contention. When you do it the first way around, you're producing a more complex and more nuanced essay response. There's an example of a high scoring response here, which is awesome. I'm going to leave that for you to have a read because it demonstrates a student who is willing to challenge the prompt as opposed to just agreeing with it. And I'll put another video on the screen where I teach you my yes, no, but structure on how you can challenge the prompt. So I really love this pointer here, and it's understanding the difference between challenging the prompt and then dismissing it altogether. So when you challenge the prompt, you're challenging the idea that's there, and it's okay for you to take a controversial position. It doesn't matter if the examiner agrees with you or not, they're just there to assess your own analysis and interpretation and how well you actually back it up, which is this well-substantiated discussion part. But when you get a prompt and it's asking you to talk about human connection, and then you go ahead and go, actually, no, the book's not about human connection, it's about something else entirely, then that's you dismissing the prompt. That's you literally going, hey, I don't feel like answering this prompt. I'm gonna create a whole new prompt for myself and I'm gonna answer that. That ain't showing your skills. That ain't showing your ability to take something that's there, to interpret it in your own way, and to come back with a critical perspective. So just be aware of that. So this next part of the discussion really seems to target specific words that are in the essay prompt and how people do not necessarily respond to those key words, and they kind of just brush it aside, which means that you're not really answering the whole prompt. So here It says in this particular prompt, and it's okay if you don't know this text, we just kind of need to know the concept behind why they've included this. It's about how there are no winners in war. It seems that a lot of people weren't actually talking about what it means to win a war, and it seems like they were just kind of talking about war in general. And this is where like highlighting your keywords comes in really handy, because that means that when you go to create your plan, you're really addressing each of those keywords to create a response that is complete. It's the same thing down here when it comes to Rear Window. The keyword harm was in the topic, and what happened was they talked about it in a more general way. Whereas the way that you could go about it is really define for yourself and for the examiner what you consider to be harm. What does that mean? You can talk about that in your introduction, so that when that point is clarified, then when you go into your body paragraphs and you talk about harm, it is very clear to the examiner that you are talking about harm. It's quite a simple fix actually. So then the next point is really about the views and values of the author. So a really easy way for you to make sure that you do this, as opposed to only talk about plot points, is simply just to include the author's name throughout your discussion. If you can do this, especially in the first sentence of your paragraph and in the last sentence of your paragraph, because it means that you start off with the views and values, you end up with the views and values. It really forces you to make that connection throughout your paragraph. And how I like to think of it is how it's very similar to analyzing argument. It's saying the author of the article cautions the audience. Hitchcock may position the audience. It's like, how is the director or the author trying to get the audience to see things in a particular way, just as you do in analyzing argument. So use the skills that you've actually learned in other sections of English and apply them here, because it all comes together. Here's another one. Mandel explores how people search for meaning in life. It's just as simple as bringing in the author's name into the discussion and talking about how they're trying to get us to understand a particular view or perspective that is aligned to them. Final thing I'll mention here is how it seems like there's still this trend of people who are trying to use big pieces of vocabulary, nice sounding long words, because they think that's what's going to score them for the higher marks. I've created another video about this, so I'll link that for you. But the examiners are saying it here. It's not about the flowery language. It's not about the big pieces of language that are going to get you those extra marks. What's going to get you the high marks is your ability to discuss the ideas, which is the most challenging part. That's why this whole thing about section A has really been just about whether or not people are able to dive into the ideas. Are you able to actually answer the essay topic? Are you ignoring keywords in the essay topic? Are you actually fleshing out the ideas in your body paragraphs rather than just picking one that you've memorized in the past? You can see that there is a theme here, and this is really to take you to that upper level of English. It's not about the small details of how long are your words, how long is your essay, how many quotes should you be using in each paragraph. So I hope this video helps. Let me know in the comments section below if you have any questions at all. This video is getting quite long, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue to analyze the assessor's report on TikTok. So if you're not following us over there yet, then make sure you go ahead and follow, because I'm publishing a lot more videos there for you guys to give you some quick pointers in preparation for your exam. All right, I will see you guys there.